We are live. Terrific. Here we are. It's the Better Tune In with Tommy G. And I have a special guest joining us today for the first time in the Better Tune In. It is Darcy Stubbings. Hey, Darcy. How you doing, mate?
I'm great, Tommy. Yourself, mate?
Very, very well. Now, this is going to throw people a little bit because you've just come across with an Australian accent, but where are you?
I am in Central California right now, hence the dark background, lit up by the slightly poor lit country lights of the little country house I'm staying in right now. It's a long story why I'm in Central Cali, but originally from Sydney. And even actually spent a fair bit of time on the Gold Coast. So I do know that beautiful view behind you, and it looks pretty stunning.
It's just people are sick of me talking about it, but I still pinch myself every day I wake up and think how lucky I am to be living where I'm living, especially in some of these tough times we're having across the planet right now.
Totally.
So in Cali, and what was I going to say? Recently, something very big happened in your life, I believe.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. For the first time, I asked potentially the biggest question you could ask anyone, and that was for my partner to marry me. So that was a huge couple of weeks. It wasn't over a couple of weeks. It was actually, I just asked one question, but the lead up and the question and the next 2 weeks were pretty awesome.
Right.
Although I'm very lucky to be, spending my life with someone who I love being with all the time. So as much as it was a great moment, we've had many great moments since. So I think that's what it's all about.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations, mate.
Cheers.
Having done that twice, I know what the lead up's like. In fact, actually, I got proposed to the second time round, which was interesting.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. And she's an American lady, yeah?
She is, yeah. Casey Waxler, if you need her full name.
Right.
She's a beautiful human being. We met in Australia about 5 years ago at a yoga studio in Surrey Hills, Sydney, that we taught at together. At the time, we only spent about 4 months together. It was just as I was going through my yoga teacher training.
Right.
And here was this, super energetic, super joyful, super inspirational woman who, I looked up to. She's a couple of years older than me, so I won't say how many for her purpose, but I guess I just looked up to her as this role model in both yoga and in life. And I was very lucky in that studio as a 25-year-old at the time to be kind of the young pup of a studio of about 15 really powerful women who were yoga teachers, who were life coaches, and Casey was one of these beautiful people. So we actually didn't get to spend the next 3 years together. She was with another partner at the time, went back to California, Canada. She's a prolific writer, so I followed on with her newsletters and her social posts. And actually the hook, which kept drawing me back to her, was this beautiful card she wrote me just before she left Australia back in 2015. And it said, you ever get that feeling that you've found your forever person or you're one of my forever people? It's a guarantee we're going to see each other again in life. And I kept that throughout relationships, throughout different experiences. I'm someone who likes to minimalize, so I like to throw my stuff away or recycle it or pass it on in terms of clothes if I can. But this one card, I just couldn't do it, and I was like, no, I think I'll keep that. And eventually, she was single, came back to Australia in late 2018, and I asked her to move to Australia with me, and it's been a incredible ride ever since, really, landing us in California today. So, yeah, big story.
Wow. So you can't. That's an amazing story. You're a very patient man.
Oh yes, I think that's one of the things she helped me learn back in 2015 when we were just mates. It was just to listen and almost read your story as it's being written. And obviously we have a huge part to say if you're bringing in concepts like quantum mechanics and epigenetics and health and well-being, and how we can get on the forefoot and create thoughts and feelings and emotions and actions that create our future reality. But one of the things I was practicing a lot at the time was just listening to how my present reality was unraveling. And I think for me, that was just a complete trust that I was on my path, and, you know, whoever was going to cross it would cross it. And I'd try and meet that moment with as much heart and mindfulness as I could. So thankfully she came back into my life. And like I said, about 10 days ago, I asked her to marry me on the top of a mountain in Oregon, which of all places. That was pretty cool. That was pretty cool. Yeah.
I feel very privileged getting some of the photos hot off the press as you led up to the magic moment, and obviously found someone to take a photo or whatever of you guys as well for one of those huge times in life. Wow. Okay. So look, there's also some amazing other stuff in your past. You know, it's sort of like there's a story I remember you told me. You didn't give me the full story. Whoa, I just caught the camera before it flipped over.
Good job.
And the sunnies are about to fly off here too. There we go. Let me just get rid of those. You're a cricketer.
Well, yeah. I grew up, you know, as a cricketer. That was how I defined myself. I'd say more broadly a sportsman. Right. That was, you know, the greatest meaning in my life was to, I guess I didn't think of it at the time, but to feel into the embodiment of my daily experience, my weekly experience, look forward to those training sessions in cricket, getting into the nets. I was a fast bowler from a young age, so that actually led to a few stress fractures in the lumbar spine, unfortunately, in my later years, but kind of transitioned into a batsman, and I had a great
As you do.
Yeah, as you do, as you get old, you know, as you get towards your late teens.
Oh, my God. It's like, you know, it's like a has-been.
Jeez, exactly. But no, I mean, cricket, it's a funny one because I try and explain cricket to any of my, you know, soon to be relatives or family. They already feel like family, but Casey's family over here in California, they just don't get it. And, you know, I understand that. I think a lot of Aussies don't get cricket. But when you grow up playing cricket, my absolute two heroes were Steve Waugh and Glenn McGrath. I used to try and bowl like Pigeon, and I used to try and bat like Steve Waugh, and try and hold my, you know, personality, I guess, like Steve Waugh. I was always, you know, it even makes me tingle right now thinking about that test match where he hit 102 against England, just crashed it through the offside for a 4 to bring up that.
I remember that shot. I remember
that like was a defining moment in my childhood, I think. Just playing backyard cricket, coming in, catching his next 4, you know, oh, he's on 80, he's on 90. And then, I mean, I will forever have a great love and respect for cricket. And it was actually, I mean, lots of stories, but it was a funny story how I kind of got out of that
path. How you what?
How I exited that path, because I was 100% keen to play for Australia. That was
right.
Yeah.
And you're allowed to say who you got edged out by in the end, because it was against you and somebody else, wasn't it?
Oh, well, yeah, my mates will give me a bit of stick about this, because it's, I guess, you know, what I try and share with my clients is to let go of those patterns in the past that don't serve us. And I've probably let go of most, except the Steve Smith pattern. And
Steve Smith, right?
It's the Steve Smith complex, if you will. He has no bloody idea who I am. However, you know, it's a neurological pathway that I'm trying to get rid of. He was a fantastic cricketer, same age as myself. We're both 30, I believe now. Well, I know I am. I'm not sure what he is, but we're in the same year, in year 12, and I was grateful to make a team that was combined of a few schools in Sydney. He was captain of the combined high school team. So he was in that same competition. We played each other a few times. He was going for the all-rounder spot in the schoolboys, the New South Wales schoolboys. So, you know, I think I had a fair few levels to rise after potentially getting that all-rounder spot, which I didn't. Steve took the spot. So, I like to think in my story after that 100% I would have been captain of Australia. So he's definitely, hit me there. But just despite some slight discrepancies in the last year or two, I think he's doing a good job, and he's wearing his heart on his sleeve. He's a vulnerable guy. Obviously, he's been through a challenging time with the media and Australia in the last couple of years. But, I think that's what perhaps, if I could say, he wasn't able to embody was just living his truth, living his life as authentically as he could because of the pressures of professional sport, professional cricket. He wanted to win. And, competition is something that we teach our kids as one of the most paramount virtues. However, these days 100% don't think of it as such. And I guess, like you said, there's neural pathways that make me chat about Steve all day. So you can.
Yeah, I'm sure. But this ain't going to be about Steve. So it's going to be about you and what you do and doing for the planet and plan to. So, but awesome. Amazing story though. Almost as good as, probably better than, because you were in it. Whereas, I get to sit down and do an executive coaching course where I did my training and becoming an executive coach about 15, 20 years ago with the famous Michael Bevan. And I couldn't believe it was him. And they paired me off with him. So I was like, kind of like, what is it? Something struck.
I think that's an awesome story as well, mate. Eye gazing with Michael Bevan, you can't beat that.
Well, I guess. But that was pretty amazing experience with Bevo. Anyway, awesome. Now we're going very much from the sports sort of side of life. You then became a physiotherapist by trade, correct?
I did. I was gunning for.
Why? How did that happen?
Well, I was in medical science my second year. I kind of followed that path because I did a lot of medical school, got the opportunity to study something that was about the body. Medical science fascinated me. However, I wanted to be a doctor back in those days, and I'm super glad, blessings to all doctors out there, but I'm super glad of the path that I ended up traveling. And that's another story about, a bit of time in Africa in a little surgical theatre, which was insane. But I spent some time with my partner at the time in this little kids' hospital, and I was convinced that being an orthopedic surgeon was my goal. We'd done a few surgeries almost as an assistant type role. They were very liberal over there. They were very generous, just saying, no, you try this and we'll be here. And it was quite an amazing experience, but it ended up this one day on the beach in Valencia. I was waiting for this call from med school, and this person stole all of our belongings. So I was in my budget smugglers on a beach in Valencia, came back out of the water, had no wallets, no phones, no clothes. Thankfully, I left my passport back in the hotel, which was 15 miles away. Sorry, I'm out of the kilometers right now. I've been living in the United States.
Right. But that's okay. But budgie smugglers doesn't make sense in the US either, does it?
No, it doesn't. In Europe, a little bit more so. They actually, just to divert, in America, they wonder why we use the term budgie and not, I guess, a more sizable bird. And I don't need to go too deep into this conversation, but it's an interesting question. I never really fully answered it. I just think you've got to throw it out to Aussie euphemism and how beautiful they can be sometimes.
Yeah. I get it.
But long story short, found myself finally back at the hotel in said budgie smugglers, got the email at that point, and it said, you haven't been accepted to the medical school you wanted to. I could have moved, but
this is Steve Smith moment.
Steve Smith moment. There are all these serendipitous. Right. So anyway, went to an open day at Sydney University, and actually the lady who was behind the physio booth said, look, because you haven't studied exercise science or something with exercise in it, you've studied medical science, a bit more technical, a bit more organ-based, we're not going to be able to accept you for a couple of years. So she said, why don't you come over to this new program I'm establishing at Macquarie called the Doctor of Physiotherapy. And I did just that. I took her word. I went straight over. I studied with the dean. I was as her research assistant for 6 months. got involved in some fascinating research with diabetes and how exercise can get on top of that. And it just led me down the path of physiotherapy. I guess it led me to yoga after about 3 years, but physio again was a challenging time. I never truly really felt like a sports physiotherapist, like that. I felt like it wasn't the answer to my skill set at that time, but I committed and I finished in 2015, and that's the physio story. It's an incredible course for anyone who would like to be a physio. I want to make sure that you know that it is an incredible career, but I guess what the questions that were left unanswered in that course, and not because of Macquarie University, but because of how we approach physiotherapy as a whole, it seems too physical. Obviously, that's beneficial, being able to understand the biomechanics of why someone's in pain, how to help them overcome pain. But I was on a bit of a deeper path at the time, personally, exploring my why and a few big questions like, what the hell am I doing here? Who am I here to help? And yoga was a really big doorway into, I guess, a marriage of the clinical and the holistic for me. So super, super intense time in my early 20s trying to work out what I wanted to do. But yoga almost held my hand and said, hey, come in this direction, feel into your own experience with more depth, with more mindfulness, and then utilize your skill set as it continues to grow to help others. And I think that's what I've, over the last 5 or 6 years, just continued to trust the path, be fully engaged. But yeah, just take every day, every moment as a blessing, because as you do as well. That's what you're all about, and that's why I think we connected not too long ago, and love to hang out. It's too fun not to enjoy.
Yeah, well, the thing is, you've kind of like got there at the age of 30. It took me about 53. We got some wind picking up here. 50. It took me another 23 years, almost. Well, if we look at comparing ages right now.
Mate, you've done your PH 360. You did your, biometry, etc. I'm sure you're a lot younger biologically. You're looking good.
Oh, thanks, mate. Thank you. You say all the right things. But I get that these days. What can I say? It's good to see I'm part of the perhaps efficacious proof of what I do in biotech exec. But it's interesting because I think, wow, we've got a bit of wind. If it picks up a bit too much, can you hear me properly?
I can hear you coming in and out, but
right. Okay, so it's a bit of wind. If it gets a bit too disruptive, just let me know and I'll move location. Just I'm thinking, well, why don't you just short circuit and go straight to yoga? What do you now do with this physiotherapy knowledge that you have? Do you kind of combine it at all? Do you still do some physio and then yoga, or do you like work out with people which they need, or have you kind of like integrated them?
Well, I mean, it's a long, I feel an enjoyable story to how I've, I guess, married and yoga for me. And I think a lot of people are doing that. One of my absolute mentors who I've never met, but I consider one of my greatest teachers, is a bloke by the name of Sam Harris. You know of him. A lot of experience in meditation, but also brings his PhD in neuroscience and his philosophy degree from Stanford to the picture. And I just really resonate with, I guess, a message that can be delivered from different languages. And as much as I would love to say I speak languages in terms of, Japanese, German, and I don't, unfortunately. However, I feel like the language of, mindfulness and consciousness, and finding your meaning and gifts and purpose in life, well, there are so many different ways we can talk to that, to speak to that. And for me, initially, it was having this physiotherapy skill set, which was fantastic. It allowed me to help people straight away. My hands got very conscious of people's tension, of people's biomechanics, why they were overloading certain areas, which areas were underdeveloped. Essentially the standard approach to physio. However, often I found that in the early days, the first 2 or 3 years, what people really wanted was just to be heard and to share their story. And, that's actually probably my most favorite part of a relationship that's developed with a client. I've seen probably over 1,000 clients or so now in a multitude of physio practices, Pilates clinics, in my own clinic, in a couple of yoga studios in Sydney, in Balmain and Surrey Hills. And so I've just had, I guess, a number of different viewpoints of the exact same problem. And that is, people just want to be seen. People want to be heard, as much as I understand anyway. And, they want to be heard based on their challenges. They want to be heard based on what their suffering entails. And, I feel that everyone goes through a degree of suffering. And I've learned over the years that even someone who is as privileged as I have been in my upbringing with my folks, beautiful people, just super inspiring in their own right, provided me with so much love, care, attention, financial support, opportunity. However, at the time at which physio and yoga started to mold, I had this almost stripping apart of what I'd known. And it was almost like yoga was trying to say, no, keep up. Try to develop those new thought patterns, those new habits, those new approaches to life. But I think part of me was really challenged stepping into that. And I was very lucky to start teaching classes in a really amazing yoga studio fairly quickly, because they saw, I guess, my knowledge with physiotherapy and what that could bring to their studio. So instantly, after having practiced yoga for no more than 6 months, I'm up in front of 50 people in a, quite well-known studio in Sydney, having to hold space for people and their physical, mental, and spiritual journeys in a way at 23, 24 that I didn't feel that I was completely comfortable doing. And I did my absolute best to show up. Every class, I wore my heart on my sleeve. I authentically, I tried to create really beneficial, fun yoga sequences, but it essentially just spiraled me into a really deep depression. So you ask, where are you going with physio and your yoga? Well, I feel like this is a necessary part of this to describe what I do now. So I spent about 3 years trying to manage my own business, feeling into a consistent state of social anxiety and some pretty significant depression that had me at times really questioning, some of those big existential questions like, well, what am I doing here? If I don't have a why, what's the point? And I love Friedrich Nietzsche's quote, he who has a why can bear almost any how. And I'd like to say that he would, in a different time, extend that to also all identities and genders as well. But I feel like at the time, I had so much of this kind of contradicting evidence of how to live your life. No, live a physical existence and make sure your glutes are strong. Fantastic. And then don't worry about your glutes. Just feel into your embodiment and try and be as present as possible to listen to the whispers that are calling out to you. And they were like almost in different ears. And, it took a lot of personal suffering through some pretty dark times, some pretty incredible friendships. My family has always been there for me, and most recently Casey as well. But, I think it's fascinating for men in particular going through this time in history when we're talking about our emotions, we're talking about our meaning, we're talking about showing up as, the best men we can. And I identify as a man, but, showing up as your best person. But I think as a young man, particularly coming out of the last 20, 30 or however many thousands of years, that patriarchal edge to how you've been brought up, even by incredible parents, like societally, is that, just toughen up, mate. Like have one of those HDFU, sandwiches and swallow it down and don't talk about it. And so I think it took a long time to develop the communication or the language of suffering for me, and then to have the courage to communicate it to my closest loved ones in life. and then to learn from that, to take steps forward, and then to get to a point almost like I kind of came out of this absolute mess of physio and yoga, and it's just, I guess, enabled me to really stay present to what my clients need in that individual moment, on that day and that week, whether it is a physical hand, maybe a guidance in regards to their mindset or their perception of their current reality, or it could be a practice that is aiming at something a lot subtler, like the practice of meditation and mindfulness. Being able to stop, I guess, not stop thoughts, but to be able to witness the thoughts, to be able to get above and almost filter what you want, like Minority Report when Tom Cruise is filtering everything. I don't really want to talk about Tom Cruise today, to be honest, but I love that where he's like, moving things around, and that's what I view, as much as I can, consciousness to be these days. Everything's coming in: sight, sounds, thoughts, feelings, emotions. It can be pretty overwhelming, but I love just letting it all arise, not judging it. I've let go of that hedonistic, way of living. Like, I need to be happy. I need to still score centuries, although I don't play cricket anymore. So I've got to find a way to get happy. And now it's like, I'm just so stoked with whatever arises. And if it is hard, then I'm with that same mindset of courage and just, clear intention, I guess.
Well, yeah. I mean, like you said, if you know your why, you don't have to worry about the how. Once it becomes a labor of love, it's like, okay, fine, this is what I'm doing, it's what I'm committed to, it's what I love doing. And
Exactly.
if things come in the way and life comes at you, then you just work it out. And you're heading towards the quantum and things like that. But these things come to you. And what I find fascinating with, a soul like yourself is, you seem to be very much an old soul in a young body, and I think that's quite fascinating. And I think people listening to this interview will kind of see that as well. Think, my God, this guy's speaking like a yogi, and he's 30. He's done his physiotherapy, and he had a chance at, it was good at cricket and so on. He's achieved a fair bit already at his age, and here he is in this sort of yogic Eastern philosophy sort of mode.
Well, yeah. Look, I certainly. I am a student of everything that crosses my path. And I think one of the biggest things I had a challenge with when I first started teaching yoga was, not feeling authentic about sharing something because I didn't have a lot of experience in thousands of years of philosophy. And, I never want to put anyone up on a pedestal, myself included, in terms of, he's learned a bit about yoga or he's said some nice things about consciousness. I think everyone's learning and everyone can share. And it's actually the stories that I love connecting to, because that's what gets me more stoked than everything. Your story, in particular, what you've shared with me in the last, few weeks that we've been getting to know each other. So yeah, I think everyone has their hidden truths, and everyone reveals them in different ways to different people. I just think that, I was, clinically diagnosed as having some pretty major depression for quite a while. This is over a span of about 3 to 4 years, as well as social anxiety. I had a number of occurrences where I couldn't actually get into a room or into, even at the beach, if someone came up to me and I felt uncomfortable, there would be visceral uprising. And I was as surprised as everyone around. I was always a super confident young bloke, but my attachment to confidence was, or perhaps, what anchored me in my confidence was that egoistic, understanding that I was a sportsman. I was pretty good. I scored a couple of centuries, got a few fifers, scored some rugby tries in front of a big crowd at school. But, as soon as you lose those attachments to those fictitious stories, particularly for young men, I think we're left with a bit of a vacuum. And I am so grateful that I landed in a space which was constantly being, I guess, connected to my incredible folk. Namely, that first experience in the yoga studio for a few years I taught there. Just some really, really amazing women, predominantly in their 30s to 40s, who had, they'd run their miles in terms of their spiritual journey, and not just like a fluffy spiritual journey. And I don't mean to insult anyone if they I guess interpret that as meaning like spirituality isn't something to be attained. But I guess what these ladies really helped me to do was to make it as realistic and as actionable as possible. What I was learning, regardless of whether it was called spirituality or mindfulness or meditation or, being focused, I just wanted to make that as simple and as actionable for other people to learn as well. And I think that's what I mean by languages. There is the language of the super spiritual yogi sitting in his or her or whoever she or he identifies with in the white robe with the mala beads, and they've got to have the perfect mala beads, and they count them however many times, and that's great. I've done that before in my past as well. However, I think, that thought and that image of a spiritual person is, again, just a thought, an object of consciousness, something that if we attach to, it can distract us from the real magic, which just is in the simplicity of everyday life. It was a brutal journey at times to get to that point, because I even remember one New Year's Eve I was super, super high. Something that I struggled with in my early and mid-20s was smoking marijuana, and I think that's something that a lot of young blokes and ladies probably resort to numb. Like every kind of young bloke and lady as well, or a lot, would drink a little bit as well. And I just remember being in a really hazy state one night on New Year's Eve, and I was standing on a cliff in Sydney Harbour, not far from where I lived at the time. And we'd actually put on a party for all of our friends, 3 roommates, 3 guys, best friends, in this house in Neutral Bay. Pretty incredible spot, super lucky. But I still couldn't feel into that, ease of life, that meaning of life. And at that time, I was so anxious of just being in front of everyone, because I felt like I was, a naked me. I could see how uncomfortable I was. And so I exited the party that I'd hosted, spent about 45 minutes just staring out to sea, or the little, inlet of the harbour. And it was a tough time. There were a lot of thoughts going through my head that were very negative, like this could be over if you wanted it to. And I think I've spoken to this a lot in the past, because I think, particularly suicide in young men is a thing that's getting more and more prevalent, particularly now
in Australia.
I
think Australia has the highest youth suicide rate on the planet.
That is crazy, because everyone's suffering is their own to bear and to understand and to move beyond. However, there are very real and physical sufferings around the world. I spent that time in Africa, and I was in no way trying to come as a naive white person. I was trying to just spend 3 or 4 months helping in whatever way I could, not trying to enforce my opinions. But I learned so much from the beautiful the Zambian people in East Africa. But they are dealing with a lot of stuff that gives immediate cause for suffering. However, a lot of them have the mindset that, we've got our family, today we had food, we've got a simple roof over our heads. So I guess that very thing that you bring up, Australia has the highest rate of suicide in young men. At the time, I was judging myself so harshly, because I'm like, mate, you went to an incredible school of so many opportunities. You played cricket, rugby, you played music. You got to connect with really fascinating people of different cultures. You traveled, and yet you're standing here on this cliff contemplating putting that away because you can't understand or move through your suffering. And I think when I bring it back to the habit of smoking marijuana, it is a really subtle. It's something that I'm actually quite passionate about. I haven't taken a step towards helping people specifically with yet, but I personally experienced how hard it is to get out of a negative habit when you utilize it as a crutch to overcome suffering. It's not the way, and I'm sure you know that. I mean, a healthy bloke that looks like that probably hasn't done anything like that in the last 30 years. But, you know, at that time, it was the countdown from 60 of New Year's Eve. And that was another turning point. I heard that, it kind of snapped me back into some form of conscious awareness. And I just thought, shit, I've got to get back up to my friends. And I've got to, like, I felt like I was at the bottom of the bottom. You know, I couldn't get any lower. And I ran up, and one of my best mates, teachers, you know, I love the dude. He's an incredible guy, business partner as well. His name's T or Thushan. He just, you know, came across the room. He's like, man, where have you been? And I was like, oh, it hasn't been a good 45 minutes, bro.
Wow.
He took both my hands in his hands, and he said, mate, whatever happens from this moment on, I am here for you. You can lean on me. You can rely on me. We're in this together, bro. And that was, I think, one of the first most open conversations I'd had with someone about how hard I was suffering. And from there, it was just keep expanding, keep opening your heart, keep trusting the process, keep taking positive steps every day, even if it's just 1 minute of meditation a day, or one journal entry about what you can be grateful for, or go and see a psychologist, because that's what I did as well at that time a few years ago. And, you know, it was just super helpful to talk about my story and share and connect. And,
Right.
you know, from there, yoga has truly guided me, and meditation in specifically, pardon me, has guided me back to a place where not only do I feel confident and super energized to help people, but I feel like that recharges me as well. Rather than at that time in my life, I gave my heart to every consultation, to every yoga class, but I was draining myself because of my own negative habits.
Right. But getting back to, I mean, do you think, it's funny, you know, I mean, because Australia does suffer a lot from this youth suicide thing. And I'm kind of looking at your example. You just talked about your situation. Do you think that's what is prevalent across, you know, the youth these days, and why it's happening? Is it connected to, you know, we also drink a lot as a nation? You know, what would be the common thread? Have you got any idea?
Look, I think I'd probably put that down to three things. And the first thing would be that concept of why. You know, very early on, I think most of our schooling system and even our kind of social system encourages a why that is directed towards winning. Certainly as a young Australian bloke, I was encouraged, you know, to play sport, which is great. I learned a lot from sport and from my teammates. But when you create a reality and therefore create your personality around one specific thing, and then that is taken out of your life, that is a huge variable in your life's equation that is no longer providing that input of well-being, of happiness, of contentment, of why. And actually, I've just finished listening to the audio book for the first time. I'm meaning to get onto it for a long time, but everything happens at the right time. Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Incredible book.
Oh, yeah.
He's, you know, obviously a professor of psychiatry and neurology, so he was able to observe the psychology of the prisoners of Auschwitz and Dachau and the other prisoner of war camps he was in from quite a clinical standpoint as well as a personal standpoint. And the one thing he said was, as soon as any of the men in the camp, because I believe he was in male-only camps, as soon as any of the men in the camp lost their sense of why or their meaning of life, which was such incredibly difficult circumstances where your life could end any day, you've lost your family, you're getting tortured, you know, how hard would it be to find a why? But I guess the study that he'd done and the work he'd done, his particular type of psychology, which he's coined logotherapy, logos meaning in ancient Greek. So he's about the therapy of meaning, and he knows that the prisoners that had meaning before, their physical bodies gave out not too long after. I mean, the people that had a meaning, for instance, he had a book that he had a script that he took into Auschwitz, and he said, can I please keep this script as my life's work in this book? And they said, nah, mate, that's not happening. So he dedicated his time not only to helping other people there with his skills in psychiatry, but also to rewrite the book that he knew would help a lot of lives. Other people were waiting for someone at home. So to bring it back to Aussies, look, personally, I found that my why was intricately tied to things that, didn't support my physical, mental, and spiritual health. They supported my physical health, rugby and cricket and athletics and swimming. And these are all very important things in your life, exercise. However, I think that they're not learning how to develop emotional intelligence, and you obviously speak to that in an incredible way, and spiritual intelligence. I truly believe that having that connection to a greater meaning is imperative to be able to meet suffering with mindfulness, with acceptance, just to move beyond it, to grow from it. So I think that's the first thing. I'm just going to let you know, Tommy, you're getting pretty loud there, mate. So you might want to head in.
Right.
It's a crap of a view, but you might want
to. Okay, we're going to have to give away the view for some sound. No worries. All right.
And just in the interlude, I seem pretty bloody sweaty today because we've had bushfires in Central California, which I tell you what, I started the year in Bateman's Bay getting an onslaught of bushfires, lost my job there because of it, and then moved to California, and it's back to bushfires. It's a funny old world. It's a funny old world.
Double dose.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay.
But in regards to that, that was the first thing. Our why, I think, needs to be taught, or not taught, because obviously you can't teach a why, but share practices regularly throughout school that help you understand your why. We have such a cycloptic system in that you're basically learning the same thing as the kid next to you. That kid probably has no care whatsoever for what you're learning. Maybe you do, or vice versa. So, I think it goes back to what we're learning, how we're talking about our emotions, our feelings. I think schools are probably doing a lot more than when I was at school about 15 years ago, but it has to be a key area of life that we address. Yep. Why are we here? What are your gifts? We all have them. We all have those gifts.
Yeah.
What are they? Let's paint something. Let's, go out and play some sport. Let's sit silently. Let's speak. Let's public speak. Let's debate. Let's do a maths test, whatever. But, that's the first thing. I think the second thing is that Australia does encourage numbing, and almost in such a jovial way that it takes a long time to rewrite those neural patterns that numbing doesn't serve you. At times, I believe that numbing was the one thing that would get me through the next day, whether it was smoking a joint or having that beer at night or whatever it was. And I know that a lot of people can familiarize with that feeling, but longer term, it is not serving us as an individual. It is not serving our family. It took a fair few challenging interactions for me with my closest friends and family, where I just felt their support kind of subside into disappointment and just, I guess, sadness that my potential that they could see, which everyone has, but they could see that I was just brimming with, this energy to help folks. I was a physio at the time, but I was still struggling. And I think when I could see the disappointment and the sadness in my loved ones' eyes, it just tore me apart. And, it was a long journey, one in which at the beginning involved actually going on to antidepressant medication as something that would take me away from the habit that I developed with marijuana and alcohol. And, this is a fascinating topic because having gone through that period of time on antidepressants, I can honestly say it was a positive move, but I do not think it was because of the actual pharmaceutical itself. I believe it was the decision for me to take a positive step in any direction away from a negative habit that wasn't serving me and to seek help. Because often if you're in survival mode, not thrival or thriving mode, I'm going to make up a word there. You need help. You need help. That's the first point. Ask your loved one, ask your mom, ask your dad, ask your family, ask your community. Just say, shit, I am not doing well. I need help. And it's incredible how much love is shared when you ask that.
Well, isn't it? But, I guess the step someone has to overcome, though, in the beginning is getting past the ego and that level of vulnerability.
Yeah.
And you kind of like had it torn away from you in a way you kind of tore it off.
Yeah.
With the identity that you had, and well, I'm a potential Australian cricketer. I'm, and just all the other things that you were good at, and then the physiotherapy piece, even to a degree. And like you said, you get put into a system, the current education system that, topic for another, conversation on, how and why that was built, and the fact that it really hasn't changed much in the 100 years that it's been around.
Exactly. Yeah.
But, it sets you up nicely for the meat grinder of, going into the corporate world, if you will, as it is today.
Well, I just want to make a point there. I think that if that is your path, then, fantastic. If you're heading into the corporate world, then fantastic. Businesses, I believe, more so than governments these days, are the medium for real change, for real transformational change, particularly businesses that have their heart in the right place, that are very successful. I mean, even ones that are, successful in a very small way for their local communities. It's incredible how much change business can initiate. And, it doesn't matter where you are. I just feel that if you're on a journey that you deep down in some way intrinsically know is not the one that you want to be on right now. And, that's a blessing in itself. A lot of people have situations where they do not have the choice to just throw everything away and go try something new. And to those folks, I still say start with one step to just feel into your own health, to optimize your physical and mental and spiritual health today. You never know where life's going to take you. And I'm talking to those folks like the single mums out there with 3 kids, or, I've treated a lot of single mums who have been struggling, and they're like, yeah, look, I get what you're saying, but it's not possible. But, if you bring it back to those theories of quantum mechanics or quantum physics and epigenetics, just creating
medicine,
and creating your reality, I mean, it's incredible what is coming out. I love Bruce Lipton, Joe Dispenza, Sam Harris, all of these inspirational minds and hearts as well, and just creating that coherence in the mind and heart. But, it's fascinating. I just reflect on it now. If I had the same amount of stoke that I do right now about learning as I did when I was a 13-year-old kid, because of the external environment, if it somehow set me up for that, and I'm not someone to look back, but for a future kid, oh man, I would be, I don't know where I'd be, but it would be crazy, because I am just so excited to learn right now, so excited to optimize, to grow, to help others to do the same. Yeah. And as a kid, I just thought it was a bit of a bore, really, showing up.
Well, look, and that's the I think why there's such a connection between you and I. I mean, we're both pointing in the same direction around optimizing human beings, longevity, sustainable performance. But a lot of it, where it's all pointing right now, is towards the heart and heart-led leadership. And, aligning the heart, like you said, with the mind, like the business world and so on is for some. It's not for all, but it's like everybody's been conditioned and programmed to think that that's all there is. If you've got the courage, and your courage is bigger than your fear, then you may become an entrepreneur and an artist and so on, and take those steps. I look at my son and how I try to encourage him to really, what he's passionate about and talented about. You can work out turning that into value that gives you a house and, feeds you and your family and whatever. But finding that piece is a real challenge today. So on that, I mean, what's your vision? I mean, you're not just doing yoga instructing, and I know you're setting up your business online as well, but what's the big picture for Darcy Stubbings? What are you delivering today, short term, and where's it going to go?
Thanks for asking. Well, it's looking super exciting, I tell you what. And, I really feel for those folks this year who have had a really tough time, with the bushfires, if they've lost houses or family members or property. And with COVID, obviously, a really tough time. I mean, personally, there were some challenging pivots. However, for the most part, having the space to dive into these questions again without having a full-time job of a physiotherapist has been just incredible. Essentially, what I have been doing for the last 6 or 7 years has been balancing treating clients in a clinical setting, physiotherapy clinics, Pilates clinics, most recently in Bateman's Bay with a fantastic group of people at Sea Change Physio. If you're ever down in Bateman's Bay, check them out because, I'm not an affiliate or anything. I just love those guys. I thoroughly enjoyed living in a small community. However, every day I would show up and try and do my absolute best for the 10 to 15 patients I saw, give them my heart, give them my mind, try and connect them in some spiritual way to themselves. And I felt so drained at the end of the day because I feel for the people on the front line, the health practitioners on the front line right now. They are angels. They are heroes. It takes so much effort to help someone else with such a complex process as their healthcare. And when they have a virus as well, nurses are some of my most inspirational mentors. I truly look up to nurses. I've worked with them a lot in the past in public hospitals. And anyway, I'm digressing, but essentially I felt into their continual output without a lot of input. And what I'm doing now is first and foremost cultivating a lifestyle that suits me, that works for me, that works for my fiance, that works for our little dog Scotty, Wally, pardon me, the little Scotty. I always call him Scotty. His name Wally is a little Scotty.
Right, Wally the Scotty.
But yeah, I mean, I just want to be able to recharge my batteries every single day and even keep them firing on all cylinders so that I can share from a place of fullness and not a place of emptiness or of pain or, of sufferings that I feel like I cannot overcome. So right now, the last 5 months have been crazy. I restarted my business 5 months ago, literally got a business ABN again, built out my website in a week, made an online course in a week, which was essentially everything that I've been doing for my personal health in terms of movement in the form of yoga and Pilates and some resistance training exercises, which I absolutely love. Simple stuff with kettlebells. Meditations, which for me have helped me overcome some of my most challenging periods. And then some information about how to step up and show up and really just step into the driver's seat of your own health. Like you're the only one that can do it, not your physio, not your psychologist, not your chiro. They're incredible folks to invite to your party of life, but you're the host. And if you, like I did that night when I stepped out to Sydney Harbour, if you're the host of a party and you step out, it's very hard to fully engage with that crowd. And so essentially I teach people how to step into the driver's seat of their health. And that is why I think we're so on the same page. You're teaching, you're in the pits with people, as you say. You're literally just cheering for people so that they can empower themselves. That's where the magic occurs, because as soon as someone takes the, metaphorical baton, if it's from me, if it's from someone else, if it's from a yoga practice, if it's from a meditation, and they grab it and they run and they're like, I am so excited about learning, about feeling more presently into this current moment, about finding my gifts and sharing them, then that is my absolute perfect client story. And I don't normally see clients for more than 4 to 5 sessions tops. It's just try to rewire some patterns, try to get some habits going that are really going to serve them. Try to get them embodied. And as you say, eat, move, sleep. Sleep, so important. If I could spend my money on an Aura ring right now, I 100% would, but unfortunately the American dollar is a bit crappy compared to the Aussie. But to answer your question in a roundabout way, I have an online course, which is my first course. I am just developing a second and a far deeper dive into your own physical, mental, and spiritual health right now. That's going to be released in December. It's going to involve a lot of input from me in one-on-one sessions, yoga classes, meditations, videos about your mindset, about your perception, and education as well. I really want people to learn what I've learned. I'm so lucky to have learned and shared some of the information you shared with me, you know, all of the languages of just life. You know, if it's science, if it's spirituality, or if it's a mold, like, let's bring it together and just help people in whatever way they can bring it on. And so I've got those 2 courses, one active, one in the works. I see clients on a daily basis with online consultations where I essentially I just want to hear your story. I'm super stoked hearing stories. I'm very confident in my ability to diagnose a physical ailment, help overcome chronic pain with my clients, you know, help people get in a better mindset that's going to serve them and the people around. And so I really enjoy working with, you know, professional athletes, people who are the single mums, you know, yogis, people in America I've worked with, people in Australia, New Zealand, like wherever. I just really love people who actually want to step into the driver's seat. The seekers, the self-inquirers, the dreamers.
There we go.
You know, people who are ready.
Okay.
And then finally, I teach my tri-weekly yoga class, which you've very, very graciously been joining. Always a positive face. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I teach a 75-minute yoga class, which involves yoga poses, meditation, breath work, a few physio nerdy facts thrown in so you can get to know your glutes a bit better. And yeah, we just have a good time.
I'm loving it. And it's at the right time too, 7 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, which is awesome.
Yes,
how do they connect up with you? You know, at a PM, I'm a bit low on battery, just to let you know. But how do they connect with you, right? And how can they make it to the yoga classes? Because I think you're like doing them as your contribution to the planet right now, right?
Well, yeah, look, they're certainly not a strong form of income right now. That's not what I'm doing them for, but my entire business is online right now. So, you know, I guess everything has to bring in something so I can keep sharing. You can head to connectmovementphysio.com, spelt like so.
Connect.
Have the shirt on.
Connectmovementphysio.com.
All one word, connectmovementphysio.com. That's my website. You'll be able to read a little bit more about me and my offerings. You'll also see the yoga class page where you can sign up. And, you know, I'd really like to offer anyone who's listened to this as well, you know, a week of free classes. Just join, try them out.
Boom.
No expectations. I even think that if people can't afford yoga classes right now, come along. You know, it's not about getting dollars from the class. As I said, it is my, you know, one of my primary forms of income now. However, I just want people to join a community that is excited, that is, you know, stoked to share their stories and just to keep growing. Because, you know, when we have that mindset, not only individually, but as a community, some pretty incredible things can come from that. Things that you didn't even or couldn't even imagine. And that's where the fun begins.
It is. I think a lot of it's community right now, connecting. And I think that's a big transformation, along with a lot of other things that are happening right now in the world, and I think more to come. But I think it's all good where it's headed. My belief is.
I agree.
But right. And if they come to name of the site again, and then what do they do when they get there if they want to get into this like free week of yoga? Well, you're very welcome to just join. I'll know. Just mention Tommy's name or something about the handsome superhuman futurist. Is that what you're called? I forgot. Superhuman futurist. Yeah, it's one of my identities.
One of your identities. If you mention something about a handsome superhuman futurist,
they're going to think about you. They're not going to think about me, mate.
Yeah, well, I can't copyright that, mate, but I'll come up with something different. But yeah, connectmovementphysio.com. You can also find me on Facebook, where I'm pretty active right now. Darcy.Stubbings, DARCY.STUBBINGS. I'm really enjoying sending out a weekly newsletter, which was inspired by actually the Tim Ferriss kind of format. If you know Tim or of Tim, you know, he's just sharing some incredible stuff, as a lot of the podcast hosts are around the world. And he sends out a 5-bullet Friday. So it's his 5 top things that he's been diving into that week, very personally. It might be his favorite song, etc. For me, I took that in a slightly more therapeutic direction, whereby I have 6 pillars of health that I believe are so important in mindset, movement, meditation, education, experience the present moment, not your resume or anything, and rest. So I kind of want to throw on stories as well, but I'm just starting with those 6s now. So the newsletter has a really succinct update of, for instance, today in education, I shared a bit about Bruce Lipton, cellular biologist, author of the book, the hugely acclaimed book, The Biology of Belief, and how, our belief can actually change our cells. And not only that, but even deeper, our atoms, the makeup of our very being. So it's not just hocus pocus, it's science now, it's physics. So I share what gets me super stoked about life, what motivates me to continue to show up for myself. And that's in the form of podcasts, videos, my own meditations, my own exercises that I post for free. And then I post them daily as well on my Facebook page. So check out my Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn as well if you like, Darcy.Stubbings, or connectmovementphysio.com. So yeah, that's where you can hit me up.
All right, so there we go, Darcy.Stubbings on LinkedIn or on Facebook. We've got some free yoga classes that are going on. Don't miss those. 7 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Yes, sir.
I'll be there as well for anybody who wants to join. Darcy, you're an awesome human being, my friend. And here you are at the age you are, and you've just recently got married to the beautiful Casey, and just as well she's locked that deal, because I think as people learn more about you, especially the opposite gender, I think you might be getting a few fans, maybe joining your yoga for other reasons.
Mate, she's got plenty of fans as well. She's
sure. Oh, there we go. Right,
she's a beautiful human being inside and out. So
right, there we go.
Very lucky,
and that's what it's about. And giving to the planet and getting it kickstarted into the new world, because I think the world's changing as we have known it for so long. I think there are exciting times ahead. But yeah, look, you're such a beautiful human being, very giving, very warm. You're very in touch with yourself, and I think the example you're setting sets a great example for other millennials and youth as well that are coming through, let alone people my age. A little further down the track. So thanks for sharing everything you did over the last hour, and looking forward to doing some cool stuff with you in the future, mate.
100%, mate. I'd just like to say thank you so much yourself for being an inspiration. Everything you're putting out there right now is just full of heart, full of intelligence, emotional intelligence, spiritual intelligence. You're just sharing from a really authentic place. And, you say some really lovely words like you're an amazing human. And I think we all are. We all can be. I still grapple with my own negative thought patterns and, you're not good enough, or, mate, what are you doing? Yeah, bloody hell, just go back to bed. But everyone has that beautiful energy inside of themselves. And I say energy, I wish I had a kind of more encompassing word. It's a great word. I mean, energy is everything.
Everything's made of energy at the end of the day.
Mr. Einstein. So he was spot on. But I just think it doesn't even have to be talk about energy. It can be, just caring for someone who wouldn't expect it, with the touch of a hand, or, just a kind smile, or just saying, I think the question, are you okay, is one of the greatest questions that have ever been thought up, because, often you ask, are you okay, to someone and they share their story. So yeah, I mean, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time today. And thank you to everyone who has joined in as well. Sending you all my love.
Thank you. Thanks, mate. And I'll just end it here, but just hang on there for a moment.
Totally. Cheers.